Hello, I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and welcome to Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. Today, we explore the relationship between religion and government, in Iowa specifically. Faith-based organizations are exercising their influence on politics and governance in Iowa, in fact, all over the country. And the power of digital media has raised awareness of the issues to unprecedented levels. And it begs us to question, what's the separation of church to state mean today? Our guest, Walt Rogers, who has a lot of experience in this arena, is here to shed some light on the issues. Walt, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks for having me. I've lived in the Cedar Valley all of my life. Worked at a oil company the first part of my career, and then I went into youth ministry. So I was a youth pastor for a lot of years, and then actually went into politics. I was a state representative for 8 years down in Des Moines. And now I work for an advocacy group that advocates for policy, mostly education stuff in the state and in local arenas also.
So as you do your work, I mean, we see this, it looks sometimes like competition between what governance wants, what the faith community would want. But we live in Iowa. There's a large, people of faith exist here. And in a way, we're a microcosm for a large part of America. How has this dialogue changed in the last 10 or 15 or 20 years?
Well, you're right in the sense that we are communities of faith. And if you look at our whole history of our country, we really are a faith-based group of people that came to this country, and all different types of religions and all different types of denominations. And so it's been part of our history. Even the founding fathers all realized that, if we're going to have a country based on freedom, we have to have a moral country at the same time. And so, you mentioned earlier the idea of separation of church and state. Well, the reality was it's really not even in the Constitution. There is this idea of separation of church and state, and it's really to protect the church from the state. And that's what the founding fathers' idea was about that, the First Amendment. And so we don't want to create or establish a certain type of religion, but at the same time, we don't want to take away people's right to flourish in those religions. And so that is really what I have found is really part of this whole discussion when we get into politics and faith. You really can't get away from people's convictions coming from their own personal faith. And so it really has a great influence on really the political world today. And it's really fascinating, actually, if you're in the middle of it, even if you're on the outside of it. If you've spent some time at the Capitol, you'll see all kinds of different passions and different ideas about what people believe. And they bring it to the Capitol, and they bring their signs, and they bring their T-shirts. And so they're there because they believe really deep down in their heart what they think should be the way we govern. And so that's why we have 50 senators down in Des Moines and 100 different representatives, all from different areas of the state, all with different ideas, all from some different faith background. And so people's faith background really does influence the topics that we discuss down there, and what we're going to be maybe discussing today.
Well, that's fascinating too, because we see this country as being very polarized from right wing to left wing. And there's so much in the media that talks about faith being sort of a right wing element in politics. But the fact is that if we take that portion of Iowa that are Democrats and the portion that are Republicans, the large majority of each of those parties are people of faith.
Yes.
And so there seems to be an effort to find common ground, and yet a lot of pressure on people to not find common ground. How do you resolve that? How do you pick your battles so that you can actually get some things done?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I really looked at it through every issue. And so when I went down to Des Moines, Yes, there's people of faith on both sides, and it really comes down to how you interpret your faith applying to a certain issue. And so, and you know me, Peter, I'm not going to try to get political here on your show, but let's just take one issue, for example. And the one that always comes up down at the Capitol is the life issue. And so people of faith on both sides of that issue are very passionate about what they believe. And so people on the right are believing that, basically life starts at conception. And so the baby inside of a womb is a life and we need to protect. And the people on the left are going to talk about, well, we need to protect all life, and everything that we do, not even outside of the womb, is something we have to discuss and talk about and make people's lives better. And the woman's body is her body. And first and foremost, she should decide that. And both of those sides are governed by their concepts of faith. And
I'm going to interrupt you really quickly because this is such a great topic. I want to make sure we have plenty of time to start onto it. So we're going to take a really short break. We'll come back. We're going to continue this conversation with Walt. You don't want to miss this. See you all after the break.
The black truck? Hey, Christina from accounting.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, I used to date a girl named Christina.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then she dumped me for my best friend. You want to see some photos of them that I took?
I don't.
I thought we talked about this, buddy.
Buzz and overshared again?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna call a car.
That's a smart idea.
So yeah, I know, that's why I did it.
Hey, you're gonna get back to the top of the mountain.
Does that mean I'm gonna get back with Christina?
No.
Oh.
No.
Every second, 127 new devices connect to the internet. You can feel it happening. Our digital world expanding with every breath. We're entering a whole new era of connectivity, and MediaCom will be ready to power it with one of the nation's first 10G platforms. We'll be bringing you more speed, more capacity, more security, and the power to do more than you ever dreamed possible.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and we're talking with Walt Rogers about the influence of religion in Iowa politics and the importance of that relationship for many Iowans on either side of the aisle. Let's continue our conversation. Walt, it's all yours.
Well, I was talking about that dynamics of the issue of life and abortion, and especially in the Capitol. And it's really interesting to see both sides come at it from a faith-based orientation. And so it really lends itself to have some pretty passionate conflicts during debate sometimes, and not even really in debate. Sometimes you'll have those discussions in the hallways and with press and all kinds of things. And so the dynamic really of faith being the underpinnings of all of our issues and all of our beliefs, I think is really true. A lot, again, just depends on how you look at it and what type of perspective you're going to take from your own faith and bring that into the arena of the issue itself.
Yeah, because we know that, the real opposite of good governance is anarchy. And we don't really want to see that. Nobody does. But now here we are in a unique space where I've seen it on the Capitol floor that when the media is around, people take one approach, which is to really, it polarizes viewpoints. Yep. But when they're in the same room, there's some people that argue and scream, but for most part, people are really working hard to try and craft solutions. And when you do that, it doesn't matter if you got two baseball teams playing in the World Series or two football, somebody's going to get a little bit more of what they want out of that experience than the other, which is called winning, because it's called legislation or budgeting or whatever. So, how does the real silent part of this process is a lot of people working really hard to make positive changes for Iowa. So can you give us a little look at what we're seeing as a challenge for positive changes? Like maybe some things we saw didn't go so well over the last 10 or 15 years that we're trying to change for the better.
Oh, wow. I don't know if you wanted to go this direction, but I think I've talked to you in the past really about that dynamic of transparency down at the Capitol. And you just talked about some people will act a certain way and when they know press is around, and act a different way, maybe behind closed doors. And that definitely is true. And so I've always believed that transparency is a better way to go. And the only way we're going to get trust back in government is if we become more transparent. The problem with that is there's very few people in politics that want to be 100% transparent. They both sides go to their side and they want to discuss in closed doors what they're going to do and what their strategy is. But I can remember one of my first years down there, we were debating probably an education issue, and all of a sudden the Democrats got up and decided to leave and go for caucus. And I asked one of my friends who was a Democrat at the time, I said, "Where you guys going?" He says, "Oh, we got to discuss how we're going to, vote on this next amendment." And I said, "Why can't you just discuss it right here, right now, right on the floor?" Like, "Oh, we got to decide strategy. We can't let everybody else know what our strategy is." And so that part of government, I believe, is not good for our culture. It just seems like we continue to go down this road of keeping things behind closed doors, and I wish we didn't. I wish everything we did down there was open and transparent, and there were no closed door behind the scenes decisions. But both sides seem to like that. But I don't think it lends itself for good discussion and good debate.
Yeah, you and I would probably agree to that. I mean, the public deserves to know what's being said. And excuse me, I remember before you became a representative, and this is a question I've asked many people running for office. I go, "What's your plan for being a good Christian and a good politician?" Which I saw a natural a problem there. Having watched government work. And it's fascinating because, like you just mentioned, that there's a set of rules behind closed doors and a set of rules in the public. But one thing the Christian community has in common is a set of rules called the 10 Commandments. And if we look at other religions, Eastern and Western, they have that in common. They have a set of rules which are extremely compassionate and humane.
Yes.
Does that distinction ever get brought up in the corridors at the capitals? And people start understanding that maybe they're the outliers and where they need to be is where the rest of us all are?
Well, there's definitely a discussion of values and principles. Again, I don't want to take you down this road all the time of an experience I had in the legislature, but I can remember when we debated one bill one time about collective bargaining, which was, the left's perception of taking away rights from the union. Well, I remember that one of the Democrats got up during debate and said, "I don't even think Jesus would vote for this bill. In fact, Jesus would be and they used a swear word, a heck no on this bill." And it was really interesting that the left would invoke their own personal faith in what they thought about it. And I remembered that. And maybe after the break, I'll tell you the other side of that story because it's really interesting.
All right, let's do that. We're going to take a short break and continue our conversation about religion and politics in Iowa. Stay tuned. Like I say, you don't want to miss this.
Multiple studies have shown that marijuana can slow both driver reaction and response time, which can be really dangerous. He's here. He's here. Wait. What? I can't drive. Why? I'm high. Oh.
Today, more than ever, you need fast, reliable internet. At MediaCom, we want you to know you can count on us. Our fiber-powered 100% gigabit technology network was built for the future. We have enormous capacity and power and 99.99% network reliability. So even though these are uncertain times, we're prepared. And you can be certain we'll keep your world connected.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. We're talking about religion and politics in Iowa, and it's a matter of faith, and at the core of many Iowans' lives, which are faith-based. Well, Walt was setting the path to a story. Let's let him continue. Walt, the stage is yours.
So I was telling a story about what's happening one time on the debate floor, and a Democrat legislator invoked the name of Jesus in one of the bills. And so I remember kind of putting that away and thinking about that. And it was probably a month or so later, well, when we started debating a bill on life and abortion. And I can't even remember what it was, if it was the 6-week bill, or maybe it might even have been a ultrasound. I can't even remember the specifics of the bill. But I remember thinking about that same legislator, and she started talking about being a no on the vote. So in the legislature, you can ask another legislator, you can ask them to yield for a question. So I asked that same legislator to yield for a question. And then I asked her, well, I remember when you said that Jesus would be a no vote on the certain bill we talked about a month ago. How do you suppose Jesus would vote on this bill? And then right at that point, she didn't want to answer the question. And I got what's called point of order by another legislator, which means they didn't want us talking about that on the floor. They did not want to talk about what Jesus thought about a pro-life or a pro-choice bill.
Well, and that makes sense, since you weren't the first one to bring it up. She was at a different time, which, we've all fallen prey to that, but that's the whole idea of transparency. You have those things on record. It's good to know it. Yeah. So how did you proceed from that point on?
At that point, when they point of order you have to go down to the well and talk it out without anybody else hearing what's going on. And so I basically told the Speaker of their House, okay, I won't direct my questions at that legislator. I'll just talk about it randomly, or not randomly, just in my discussion. So she didn't want this point counterpoint, very vitriolic debate going on the floor. So we just stayed away from that. Although I wanted to, they didn't want to go there. So again, even when we're in the debate time, they don't really want to go into some of the hard discussions sometimes, which is, I think, sad. It kind of goes to this whole point we're talking about is, faith and governance. And if we can't have open discussions about what we think our faith says about a certain topic, it makes it awfully hard to bring that into the culture.
Well, I wasn't planning on this to become a discussion on governance and transparency, but interestingly enough, that very much surrounds this issue, because exactly what you pointed out is the fact that it's pretty much well known in political circles. If you antagonize the faith community to too great an extent, your political ambitions could be severely impacted. Mm-hmm. Which is why some people say one thing in public, and when it comes to voting for bills, do a completely different thing for whatever reasons they share with their constituents. But now let's get back to just the common man in Iowa. The average community, and we got all the 99 counties and all kinds of governance. They want to see positive changes to make Iowa a better place for our children. And where do you get your knowledge and information? How do you proceed when you try and take these issues to Iowa leadership?
Well, like I said, first and foremost, I do use my core faith, my core religion to guide my passions on issues. And so I've told you lately, I've really been passionate about education. And that seems to be an issue that is across the board, rural or urban. People care about it. And, in the past couple of years, there's been a lot of things where parents have found out, maybe some of these things that they're teaching in education or in school, they don't align with my own religion, my own passion on my issues that I believe. And so it's really caused some consternation across the board. And so we're seeing, bills across the country. Iowa passed several bills last session that directly went to, some of the gender things and all those types of things that are happening in schools. And so I think a core belief across the state is, parents really don't want their daughter having a boy coming into her bathroom or something like that. And so those issues have come to the forefront because they do, I do believe they go to the core of some of our own basic religious beliefs. And so that being said, I just feel like the legislature is in a place where they are trying to understand their own constituency and take it to the chamber floor and really make good decisions about what they think their people believe.
Yeah, I'm going to share a short point and then we're going to take a little break. But one thing I've noticed in my discussions with the public throughout the state is the fact that both sides have one thing in common. They want to see education become better. But I heard an analogy from a farmer once, and he said, the changing educational systems is like, the schools, whether they're private or public, are like trucks delivering milk. We all want the milk to be better, but instead of getting better milk, we're looking at more delivery systems. And that may be a point of contention on both sides, which gives a valid opinion. I mean, and maybe that's a hallmark of governance. It doesn't always fix the right things. So we'll take a short break. And Walt, we're going to ask you to share some comments, insights, and inspiration that are going to help our viewers understand this political landscape in Iowa better. See you all after the break.
Today, more than ever, you need fast, reliable internet. At MediaCom, we want you to know you can count on us. Our fiber-powered 100% gigabit technology network was built for the future. We have enormous capacity and power and 99.99% network reliability. So even though these are uncertain times, we're prepared. And you can be certain we'll keep your world connected.
Welcome back. Today on Surviving Bad, we've talked about religion and government in Iowa and how faith-based organizations are exercising influence on politics and governance. Let's see what insights and inspiration our guest, Walt Rogers, has to share. Walt, we talked a little bit about delivering the milk, so to speak, in education. What are your thoughts?
Well, Peter, I think that was a great analogy, saying that, education or the basics of education are the milk, but we've been really focused on the delivery system of the delivery truck. And it seems like we have just, put lots of money into the delivery truck for the past, really 50 years. And we have got the most fancy, elaborate delivery truck that we possibly can think of, but yet the milk might be getting stale. So if you want to further that analogy, I have spent, like I said, most of my life trying to understand passions and what people believe and relating that to culture. The past few years, I've been working for an advocacy group called Inspired Life, and we are really focused on education. And you're right, education, the arena of education really pits, some different faith-based dynamics against each other. And so for the past few years, parents are starting to realize, gosh, maybe the public school is doing some things that doesn't align with my own personal faith. And so that's why I believe you've seen across the country this really explosion in the school choice arena. Iowa was one of the states in the forefront of putting together a bill last year that really expanded the choices for parents. And so there are now 10 states that have followed suit across the country, and many states already looking at expanding their school choice options. And what that does, essentially, it says, okay, we're spending a bunch of money on public education. Can parents take part of that money that we're already spending on public and apply it to a school where they can send their kid wherever they want. That's really the basics of school choice. And so we believe that that should be the case. And I believe it also alleviates or lessens this pressure of the dynamic that's happening in public school of us versus them. If you give parents another option to send their kids somewhere else, that alleviates that hard pressure in the public school. And so school choice is a good thing, we believe. And if you look at the dynamics of the funding, not too many people understand it. But for instance, I live in Cedar Falls. Cedar Falls is spending $20,000 a year per kid. And that's not a guess. That's on the Iowa Department of Education website. You can look it up. And so if we take that kid out and spend take that same kid and spend $8,000 instead of $20,000, we just save taxpayer dollars, and it's a win. And so we believe school choice is a win-win, really, financially and for the parents across the board, wherever it's tried.
Well, before we go away, let's just take a little snapshot on history. What's the difference in the school systems from growing up 30 years ago or 40 years ago and today?
Oh, wow. Well, I think the spending, I think a lot of different culture ideas have been introduced into the public school. And so it kind of goes back to what we started at the beginning here, Peter, is like, where does faith come into play into our culture? And so pretty much 30, 40 years ago, everybody had a similar faith in the public school, so there wasn't a problem. And now it's very diverse, very different. So we have this issue within the public school that people want different things.
You know, that's a really great point. I appreciate your work on behalf of all Iowans to sort of keep us open-minded about what the options can be. And thank you all for watching today. Check out our website at healthyiowa.org and keep your eye on MediaCom MC22 for our next episode of Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration on MediaCom MC22, your local programming leader.